Per usual, guys, it is stupidly hot. You're going to have to deal with my fan in the background. And yes, I'm a little extra oily because one, it's stupidly hot. Two, I'm a bit sunburned after my grand adventure yesterday. My boys got to ride a steam engine train for the very first time, and I got to go visit my hometown in a long time. So it was a very adventurous day, and I do have a vlog about that coming to you guys shortly when I get a chance to edit it. I have so much editing to have to do. But anyway, so per usual, traffic noise, fan noise. You should know the dealio by now. So let's get started.
What the fuck, we really suck at basic human rights. A woman should choose what goes on between her fucking thighs. It's funny how the men in power want to legislate against the bodily autonomy of the women they impregnate. Here's my take, let's fucking make it legal for women to make the choice and have a voice. It's not a fucking sin. I can't believe we're still fighting this fucking bigotry. I thought we left this bullshit back in 1973.
As many of you may know, Roe versus Wade is in jeopardy. Losing Roe versus Wade terrifies me. And not just because I am a biological woman, a member of the LGBTQA+ community, or being mixed race and having children of mixed race, but also because of the ripple effects it will have and the precedents its loss will set for the future of not only our country, but other countries. I have stayed silent until now because I felt there was more to this story than the surface value. Oftentimes, things like this overlay something else, something deeper, more dangerous. And so I was wondering, what is this case covering up? What else is going on? The answer is not surprisingly complicated. So let's grab our coffee and let's dive in.
Stop spilling the tea!
And drink the coffee. Bam, ba-dum, bum, bum, bam, bam, ba-dum, bum, bum, bam. Coffee. Bam, ba, 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 ba. Coffee. Dun, 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 dun. Coffee. As I discussed in a previous video on this matter, abortion isn't just to fix a mistake of a drunk one-night stand, but there are actual medical reasons for such a procedure. So, what about the medical side of abortions? Is there an actual medical reason we could need an abortion? Actually, there are several. Unfortunately, whether or not we wish to admit it, pregnancy isn't all roses and rainbows. Not all women are lucky to be as fertile as myself, and are not always lucky to have had an easy pregnancy and or birth such as myself, which I am grateful to have had 2 easy pregnancies with little to no complications, but not all women are lucky. Women can struggle becoming pregnant and even being able to carry to full term. Miscarriages are very common and an abortion is needed in order to remove the unborn and unfortunately no longer alive. What is scary is if we lose Roe versus Wade, women who struggle with pregnancy and struggle with carrying to full term may be facing legal actions for their body's inability to carry to full term, something that is not within their control. There are also other health issues that may lead to a woman having to make the difficult choice of her life versus the life of her unborn child. All this gets lost in the chaos when abortion is brought up. Yes, rape happens, and yes, women can get pregnant from rape. And if you are not able to have access to things to prevent said pregnancy, such as Plan B, or end it, such as abortions, and you are forced to carry this child, who is a child of your rapist, to full term, this causes many psychological difficulties, such as rejecting said child, and the child may grow up in a home where they feel rejected and never get the love from their parental figure, i.e., their mother. Yes, you could put the child up for adoptions, but they have proven time and time again that foster care also has its own issues. But this is not the only reason women may have to have an abortion. Returning back to my previous statement, which is often lost in the chaos of women having a one-night stand and having an abortion after. This is a layered topic and cannot be seen through a narrow lens like it currently is. In Tommy's article, pointed out that, quote, many women and couples told us they dislike the use of the word termination to describe their experience because of its association with termination of unwanted pregnancies. They also feel it implies that they had more choice than they realistically had. Try to remember that it is just a medical term, end quote. Tests can show that a baby may have serious medical problems such as generic or structural conditions. Chronicus villus sampling, which diagnoses things such as Down syndrome and cystic fibrosis, as early as 10 weeks. However, fatal anomalies cannot be found until after the 20-week mark, such as lethal fatal anomalies, which means that the fetus will certainly die before or shortly after birth, leaving the mother having to make the choice to terminate, more often than not, a wanted pregnancy. Quote, a study of maternal fetal medicine, MFM doctors, specialists who manage pregnancies with fatal anomalies, found most agreed that termination of pregnancies due to a lethal fatal anomaly should be allowed in all circumstances, 76%. The majority, 75%, discussed abortion as a management option soon after diagnosing a lethal fatal anomaly, but services for terminating pregnancies in these scenarios are limited. Only 40% of the MFNs worked at healthcare centers offering abortions past 24 weeks for lethal fatal anomalies. An additional 12% knew of available services within the 50-mile range. Other factors come into play, such as preeclampsia. I am sorry if I am horribly mispronouncing so many of these medical terms. A condition of high blood pressure and signs of damage to another organ system, often the liver or kidneys. Cancer and intrauterine infection, cryoanomalies, often in conjunction with premature rupture of the amniotic sac, PPRON, basically the sac that helps keep the baby alive. These conditions can lead to the mother having to make the choice of termination for her own health issues. All these are protected under Roe v. Wade as we speak, but will no longer be protected if we lose it. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and Physicians for Reproductive Health, a group of physicians providing health care for women and group that strongly advocate for quality health care for women, released the following statement, I believe, in September of 2018. The science of medicine is not subjective, and a strongly held personal belief should never outweigh scientific evidence, override standards of medical care, or drive policy that puts a person's health and life at risk. Pregnancies imposes significant psychological changes on a person's body. These changes can exacerbate underlying or pre-existing conditions like renal or cardiac disease, and can severely compromise health or even cause death. Determining the appropriate medical intervention depends on a patient's specific conditions. There are situations where pregnancy termination in the form of abortion is the only medical intervention that can preserve a patient's health or save their life. As physicians, we are focused on protecting the health and lives of the patients for whom we provide care. Without question, abortion can be medically necessary. An article published in CPR on May 5th overturning Roe v. Wade could mean a major shift in abortion laws in the U.S., but human rights advocates say such a move could also weaken reproductive rights across the world. The move would damage the global perception of the United States. Amnesty International Secretary General Angies Calamard said in a statement. It would also set a terrible example that other governments and anti-rights groups could seize upon around the world in a bid to deny the rights of women, girls, and other people who can become pregnant, she said. However, by removing the nearly half-century-long constitutional protection on a woman's right to choose, America could open the door for the people's hard work in other countries to also be reversed. My immediate first thought when I heard the news that Roe versus Wade might be overturned was this might lead to government subordination by one religion. Maybe even a single subset of that religion might take over my country, where religious freedom is supposed to be protected by our Constitution. When other religions and most people in the country publicly recognize the obvious physical, mental, emotional, and economical oppression in denying a woman's right to an abortion, yet still refuse to say Roe v. Wade, you know we are in trouble. The narrative that we are a Christian nation has increased over the years, but that's not true. We have never been, nor have ever been, a nation under one religion. Did you know that under God was not added to our national pledge until June 14th, 1953? For context, my beautiful mother was born in 53. From the beginning, we have been a country which allowed religious freedom. If we lose Roe v. Wade, we also lose our religious freedom, unless, of course, you believe that you are a member of the approved religion and also a member of the approved branch of that religion and are therefore safe. I hate to break it to you, honey, few people belong to this my way only religion running this current governmental power play.
Evangelicals are trying to take control of the government at this moment. And if they... the work that they've already done to take control of the government has made it harder to be in the United States, harder to live here, if you aren't a white, straight, male Christian. Or a white, straight, male evangelical, more specifically. It was supposed to be set up in such a way that the law was blind to race, religion, anything at all. It was supposed to be set up so that the government protects everybody's rights. The government gave us a list of rights that it would protect. And it said, it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or a Muslim or a Hindu or any of that other stuff. It doesn't matter at all. We're going to protect your right to life. We're going to protect your right to, I don't know, what are some of the other rights? We're going to protect your right to freedom of speech. We're going to protect your right against search and seizure, and it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or a Buddhist or anything at all. The moment somebody tries to come in and infringe on those rights, we will prevent it. By only protecting people's rights, the government has set itself up to work for a set of people from any background, race, religion, anything at all. But these people, like these Christian extremists that we're dealing with now, have no interest in working with or living with anybody who is not one of them. It's like they want to make it as difficult as possible for people who are different from them to live a normal life.
And we know this because if I, a pagan, indigenous mixed person who follows her native roots as best as she can, cannot claim my religious rights to choose to have an abortion in a country where I'm supposed to have religious freedom, you know, we're fucked. Roe versus Wade will start a ripple effect. Women will lose their rights. We will lose our rights to vote, our right to education, our right to our own bodies, and even our right to work. And it has to do with Britney Spears.
It's Britney, bitch.
We all remember the case of the year when Britney Spears was fighting for her right as a human being. And everything that fight revealed about what the pop star has gone through, not only in her career, but her personal life. But did you also know that the case is somehow connected to Roe v. Wade?
We're going to talk about Britney Spears and how Britney is every woman in the United States right now. How her situation mirrors that of every woman in the United States right now. Because she posted some photos, and people didn't like those photos. Some people looked at them and said, well, that's wrong. Therefore, she needs to be returned to a legal structure in which somebody else is making decisions for her. If you don't know what I'm talking about, she posted photos in her birthday suit. And while we're talking about birthdays, I need to point something out that is really important to this conversation. Because I know a lot of people still see her as the girl next door who's singing Oops, I Did It Again. Brittany is 40 years old. She is 40 years old, but for some reason can't be trusted to post photos that she wants to post. She doesn't have bodily autonomy. Her actions must meet a standard that other people impose upon her. She can't think clearly with her little baby lady brain, I guess. She needs a man to tell her what to do.
By losing Roe v. Wade, we also lose our right to privacy. And this doesn't just affect women and or members of the LGBTQ+A community or those of color. It will affect everyone. Men, women, blacks, Hispanics, Latinos, Asians, Indigenous, and everyone in between.
I learned a long time ago that Republicans think in gotchas. Oh, abolish abortion. Gotcha. No, you dumb little shit. That's not what you did. You just proved to the Supreme Court of this country that something that was protected by the 9th and the 14th Amendments is no longer constitutional. And by doing so, you have proved that the 9th and 14th Amendments don't need to exist. What are the 9th and the 14th Amendments? Well, I'm glad you asked. They either protect your bodily autonomy, the right to govern yourself. It's why no matter how much I've wanted to, I can't blow dart people with the vaccine. And the other one protects your federal right to privacy. Because think about it. How is the government going to prove that you had a miscarriage in the privacy of your own home if they can't listen to you in the privacy of your own home? God, they're so fucking stupid. This will only affect the women, the male Republican senator said, hoping a forensic data analyst can't look up his search history. Wiretaps? Legal. Reading your texts? Legal. Looking at your bank statements? All legal. And the best part, enforcing vaccines at the risk of a felony. Fucking legal!
It was the 9th and 14th Amendments which were used in order to pass Roe v. Wade. But what are these amendments? Since 1791, the 9th Amendment has protected the rights of the citizens in simple terms, from what you want to eat, how you want to paint your nails, what color you want to dye your hair, where in the country you wish to live, who you wish to marry, your rights to own a house or a vehicle, to have a pet or a kid, to choose whether or not you want a higher education, if you want a relationship or a one-night stand, to be religious or atheist. All this is protected under the 9th Amendment. During a debate about whether the Constitution protected the rights of its citizens, those insisting a Bill of Rights to be included were the anti-federalists. Quote, "They feared that the federal government would take all the power and oppress other people." Then James Madison listened and included the 9th Amendment in the Constitution. However, an essential portion of the original draft that Madison created was removed by a select committee. It was to prohibit the federal government from expanding its power more using interpretation. This, in turn, made the whole application of the amendment and the purpose it was supposed to serve irrelevant. The intention was for it to be used as the Constitution's mode of interpretation. It was supposed to give people the confidence that federal courts wouldn't create any new government powers through interpretation. Well, the 14th Amendment, put in place in 1868, grants citizenship to all people born or naturalized in the United States. I've always found that wording strange. Maybe it's because I am indigenously mixed and my ancestors have been naturalizing here since before the U.S. existed. And gives them, quote, equal protection of the laws, unquote. This also includes prosecuting states that violate or abridge their citizens' right to vote. And finally, the 14th Amendment also upholds any national debt. By losing Roe v. Wade, we are saying we don't have rights of any kind or even citizenship. Women aren't the only ones to be put in jeopardy by losing Roe v. Wade. Many others are as well, one being the LGBTQ+ community. Gay marriages is under threat, but not just gay marriage. So is marriage between races. Yep, you heard that right. Losing Roe v. Wade will also lead to losing the right to marry whomever you want, whether that's someone of the same sex or of another race. We will also lose our right to privacy. It won't just be women and LGBTQA+ community members who will lose their choices and their privacy.
Hi, Mr. Jones. I'm going to be your nurse today. I was looking over your code status. I noticed that you're a DNR. That means do not resuscitate. And Mr. Jones, I know that's your choice to make, and I know your choice to be a DNR doesn't affect me, but I'm pro-life. So, Mr. Jones, I will not honor that DNR. If your heart stops, even though you don't want me to restart it, I'm going to restart it because I'm pro-life. What's that? It's your body, your choice. We actually got rid of that idea a while ago. So actually my beliefs can be pushed on you, and you're just going to have to accept that, Mr. Jones. Okay, I'll be back in with those medications you refused earlier because I believe they will help you, and we need to go by my beliefs, not what you want for your body autonomy. Be right back.
Told you. It will start a ripple effect. Cases such as Planned Parenthood of Southeastern Pennsylvania versus Casey, quote, the Supreme Court needs to honor Roe v. Wade's core principle that the Constitution protects a person's right to make their own private medical decisions, including the decision to have an abortion prior to a fetal viability. But in December 2021, the Supreme Court's response to the oral arguments and Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization made it seem possible that a majority of justice may erase nearly 50 years of precedents and overturn Roe v. Wade. Thom Hartmann pointed out that taking away safe abortions and birth control is trying to re-increase the white population and force the diversity of our country to fade once again. And he's not the only one pointing this out. TikToker at Buttercup Daddy 888 also pointed this out as well.
Did you know that at the beginning of the pandemic, a baby boom was anticipated in the US? But the exact opposite happened. Less and less Americans were having children, to such an extent that states like Alabama were having more deaths than births on record for the first time since World War II. In fact, last year was the lowest recorded population growth in this country's history, with a growth of only 0.1% and immigrant families making up over 60% of that fraction. Lower population, more diversity. So I don't think it's a coincidence that Roe v. Wade is up in the air right now. A capitalist society isn't sustainable on a dwindling working class. And when that working class has access to all forms of birth control, ensuring that unwanted pregnancies don't occur, the powers that be are inclined to start removing some of those rights. To put it simply, Americans were choosing not to have children in a pandemic, as is our right. So now the government is starting to remove those rights to ensure that more Americans are born. I'll close out with the fact that banning abortions will not eradicate the practice. It will only remove the safest methods previously available.
By the way, love the name. One problem with this narrative is the fact statistically, white women have been struggling to get pregnant and staying pregnant. By losing Roe v. Wade, we also will lose artificial insemination. You know, that thing that helps couples who struggle getting pregnant? Yeah. They'll lose that medical help, and they, the powerful, will lose even more white women who struggle carrying to full term for a lot of medical reasons. Instead, pregnant women can now, in a few states, be put in jail or forced to carry a dead fetus or a fetus stuck in her fallopian tubes. So these women will unnecessarily die, causing even fewer white women to be around to make more white babies. Roe versus Wade will also affect my fellow Indigenous. I, despite being indigenously mixed, am white passing, and at least have the advantage of white privilege, which the majority of my Indigenous family do not. One of the biggest places this shows up is within the Indigenous reservation communities, where finding adequate healthcare is already a struggle. For hundreds of years, the American Indigenous community has struggled with lack of proper governmental services that many fellow Americans take advantage of every day, including myself. Women in the Indigenous community have already been affected by MMIW and forced sterilization. By losing Roe v. Wade, our community would be affected even more. As head of the Indigenous Women Rising, Rachel Lorenzo pointed out Indigenous people have been fighting for reproductive rights since colonization. Quote, since Columbus got here, our ancestors were enslaved, our children were forcibly separated, all the way down to taking our kids away and sending them to boarding schools and forced sterilization by Indian Health Services, which didn't really get acknowledged by the federal government until the Obama administration. We have already been living in a post-Roe reality, end quote. Since the Indigenous Women Rising have been helping establish an abortion fund since 2018, anything from food, gas, abortion care, childcare, airfare, lodgings, tickets, pads, and medications, the recent banning of abortion laws that have been passing, such as the one in Texas, the group has seen an increased need for their services. One of the largest problems, Lorenzo pointed out, is the fact that now, thanks to these new abortion bans, Indigenous women are having to travel even further, which puts the elders and children that they take care of at risk and also delays these women from getting help because they have to find someone to take care of their elders and children while they are gone. Indigenous women have been struggling to get proper health care after such things like forced sterilization and the passing of Hyde Amendment in 1976, which banned federal dollars to be used for such things as abortion care. And for those of you who don't know, reservations are under the federal jurisdiction, with the only exceptions being rape, incest, or the life of the mother being in extreme danger. As Lorenzo herself stated, even though they are legally allowed to provide that care, they still don't. And even medical directors has a different policy that guides their providers. When they have a patient who is expressing they want to terminate their pregnancy, we have been told by providers ourselves that their medical directors tell them that they're not allowed to even mention abortion. They're just supposed to sign them out for prenatal care and schedule their appointments. I'll finish this section with these words from Rachel Lorenzo herself. Wealthy white women in particular will always be able to access abortion even after Roe. They can go overseas if they need to, but our people can't. My mother has always told me in any situation, but especially when it comes to politics, follow the money. And by following the money, we will go back way further than current events. During the 60s, my mother's generation, the baby boomers, both started something and proved something to the government. That well-educated young people could force their government to make changes, but they also made our government realize something else. They had given their people too much power. So what was their response? Dumb down future generations. It was subtle. It always is. By taking things out of school that at the time had been mandatory. My generation, the millennials, and from what I can tell, the generations following mine, took notice that school didn't even teach us anything. Sure, we learned how to read and write and do math and basic history, and mostly how to take tests. My generation was the last to learn how to write in cursive. We never were taught how to balance a checkbook, file and pay our taxes, apply for jobs or colleges. But you know which generation had been taught all of this? My mother's. And not only that, they were given actual job training in trade school in high school. Yes, they had college, which by the way didn't leave them with a lifetime amount of debt, but they didn't have to go to college to get job training for jobs such as construction, becoming a mechanic, or how to drive, because these were things they learned in high school. All of which were completely taken out of school by the time I got there, when maybe a couple were available, but only as extra curriculum if you were lucky. I had to go to the next day over just to get the same drive training my mother received in high school, and even then it wasn't extra credit towards my education or even an extra sticker on my driver's license, like it would have been in my uncle's generation. I wish I had good news, but I don't. As chief legal officer of the Group of Human Rights, Lee Cha Nino stated, the Supreme Court's draft opinion is a step in a very dangerous direction for anyone in the United States and a frightening signal to authoritarians around the world that they can strip long-established rights from their country's people. And Tara Dinmart stated, women and people who can get pregnant have been fined for decades globally for the most basic right to health care, to be able to control their bodies. And here in the United States, where we have had this basic protection, though it's never been enough, is rolling back. What a slap in the face to the generations of people who fought for this right. To backslide at this level, it's unimaginable. As it currently stands, 26 states could very quickly move to ban abortion altogether, and 36 million people have the ability to get pregnant, are about to lose not only access to abortions, but also the right to their own bodies, health, and privacy. Power. At the end of the day, it's all about power. It's the same reason why they're raising food and gas prices, so we're forced to come back and be their little fucking slaves. Wherever you are, take care, my sweeties. As always, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more content and support this channel. If you would like to keep up to date with this channel or to talk to me personally, you can follow me here. Or if you'd like to see what I am up to between these projects, you can catch up with me here. Or email me. And don't forget to join in the conversation by commenting below. Until next time.